We roll on with our most intriguing Seahawks top 25 for 2024. We're breaking into the top 10 tonight. We're starting at number 13, making our way down. We're getting there pretty quick, Bryce. It's getting down to it. Another exciting 4 Hawks that we're bringing our listeners tonight. So I'm ready to get into it. What about you?
Yeah, man, I'm totally ready to go, get into these 4 guys that we've got coming up and kind of get into that top 10 just as we get training camp coming around the corner here.
Yeah, so just before we get into that, guys, want to give a quick shout out because we got up to 500 subscribers, and we want to give you guys a shout out just for all the support that we continue to get. And just a reminder, we're going to do a live Q&A at the end of July. So probably around July 28th is what we're looking at. So there'll be that down in the description exactly when to check that out. But we're going to be live streaming that. So Q&A time for everybody to get in there, fire up whatever you can. We're going to have some guests coming on too. So it's going to be a fun episode, man. We're really looking forward to that. And so anybody watching tonight and you haven't subscribed, make sure you go down, hit the subscribe button for us and the like button, share the videos, also hit the notification button so you don't miss any future episodes that are coming up. And everybody that has, we appreciate the continued support. So coming up after this, we're going to give you 4 more Hawks.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
Look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch, get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo Wilson to catch. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does.
Is it going to be another 9-8?
Mike McDonald's got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his success and part of
ambition of being the LOB
Want to hear that's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Getting right into it, most intriguing Hawks, and we're going to give you number 13 right here. And here's a guy that big money guy that we signed last season. High hopes for this guy on the defense. We basically the season before had a line that management decided that we're going to just kind of turn it over and get some new faces in here because we're so bad at the run, man. I mean, we were ranked, bottom of the league, just couldn't stop the run. And bringing in some new faces, Draymond was kind of Draymond Jones is the guy here at 13. But he was the guy that we threw a lot of money at, thinking, okay, we're gonna really change things and slow the run down, at least get a little more respectable. Wasn't the case last year again. Finishing again almost where we finished the year prior. But now with Mike McDonald here and this new staff and just a guy that we've talked about, hey guys that hey, you can get a little excited about maybe because it's a totally new regime. Mike McDonald, defensive coach. Dre's got a lot of talent. What intrigues you the most about him?
So what intrigues me the most about Draymond Jones is I completely think he was totally underused last year. And it's actually interesting. The other day, I saw an article come out by Brady Henderson, who's ESPN's reporter for the Seahawks and been around the team for a lot of years, and he does some great content. And he actually did an article on Draymond Jones. And I think either Brady's away because it didn't really populate up on Twitter, and I kind of just stumbled across it. And I really suggest our listeners to go read this article. But basically, he talks about how last year's coaching regime really was at odds with the player personnel department on how to use Draymond Jones. And I think there was a lot of talk about they wanted Draymond to be more of in the pass rushing role, really kind of affect that pocket, because that was what he was known for when he was with Denver and why we gave him the money that we did coming out of that free agency period. And just looking at his stats, right? He played 17 games, durable guy. He had 26 solo tackles, 23 assisted. But the thing was he only had 4.5 sacks. And I think part of that was Chenna's injury, because if you remember earlier in the year, he was really playing inside, kind of at a 3 technique spot. And then as the season progressed, the injury happened, Leonard Williams showed up. They started moving him a little bit to the edge role, but like he'd be edge and then he'd be bounced back inside, and he kind of never really got into a groove or a rhythm, I think, as a D lineman on that front. So I look at like what I've heard out of minicamp, he's dropped weight. So he was 280-ish last year. Now he's down into 260, 270, which tells me like Mike McDonald and this staff's really pushing Draymond into that edge outside pressure role. But I think the one thing with Mike McDonald and what we've constantly heard is he wants to make the quarterback feel like everybody can blitz and everybody can come at any certain point in time. And I think Leonard Williams and Draymond Jones, like apparently there's been some, from what I've heard and seen on Twitter, there's been some alignments where both of them are playing end and then both of them come in and play inside pass rush. And, they've got more speed rushers out there like Darrell Taylor and Chenna Nwosu. So I think they're really going to create matchup issues, with Draymond and Leonard Williams. And I really want to see Draymond earn his money. Obviously, they restructured his deal this offseason, which I think is indicative that they want to, give him some incentive to reach what they've put out there for money for him and keep him in the fold. So I truly believe Mike McDonald's got a plan on how to use Draymond Jones this year. And I think we're going to see a more unlock closer to what we saw, in his 2022 season with Denver, where he had 9.5 sacks. I think that's the Draymond Jones we'll see in Seattle this year, not what we saw last year with Pete Carroll's regime.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I know Mike alluded to they had a cool plan for Draymond, and the other thing is just when you look at the depth on this line too, that coming into this season, just makes you also a little more confident. Like, okay, he's going to be sort of utilized where they want him. You're not like, okay, we got to put him here because we just don't have the depth, or we have to try to do something here, and maybe we don't know what we're doing exactly. So you kind of feel a little more confident with Mike, with the depth, and just really setting the table for Draymond to say, okay, now this is your time to really go earn it, like you said. So yeah, I'm excited about him, man. Definitely a player, definitely one of the key guys out of the 25 that I want to see. Just because, like you said, the big contract, it's restructured a bit, but it's just like, you see that this guy does have a lot of talent. So he's an exciting guy to definitely keep your eye on, man. Let's move along. We got another guy that you and I have discussed a lot on the pod. And for good reason, because it was a weird year for him last year. And a guy with a lot of talent, a lot of raw talent, had a great rookie season, but just a really strange season. And that's Tariq Woolen, man, or Reek Woolen. And, he's a guy that we're going to keep our eye on big time, because that corner room, is deep as hell. Drafted a couple young guys. You got Trey Brown, guy we mentioned on the last episode with the intriguing. Obviously, Witherspoon's not even in the conversation because he's cemented. But Mike Jackson, you can go down the list. There's guys. What's intriguing to you most coming in this year with Reek?
I actually, the thing for me that's most intriguing about Reek, and because we've kind of talked about him, that he needs to kind of have a bounce back year. He had some injuries, and I think even at points last year, I think his commitment maybe might have been in a bit of question. Going that extra, like I remember in the Pittsburgh game, that pile up near the 5-yard line, and Bobby is one of the only guys pushing that pile, and Reek standing on the outside and basically kind of just steps away from it and doesn't even try and get there. And I know he's not a big guy, but it's that effort factor. Like, you would never have seen Sherman do that during the LOB days. He would have stuck his nose in there, they had that mantra, protect every blade of grass, fight for every blade of grass. And I think that kind of got lost. And I think this coaching staff lost some of these players last year and lost their buy-in. And I think Reek might have been one of them because he was coming off such a successful rookie season. So when I look at Reek Woolen, why I find him so intriguing is actually even more so now was the interview Leslie Frazier did with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks on the Moving Sticks podcast. And he kind of came on and he talked about the secondary and how they have to move and communicate in unison, understand what everyone else's job is. But he said something too, which is their plan is to have Reek be the guy to follow the number one on all over the field, not Witherspoon. And so that leads me to believe that they want to use Witherspoon like they used a bit like Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore, but Reek's the guy they're banking on to be their true number one cover corner and follow the number one receiver of the opposite team around the field. And so I think that's putting a lot of stock into Reek being here and basically almost kind of cementing him as the other top corner outside of Witherspoon, which I know some of our listeners already just assumed that was the case. But I think that's also putting a lot of pressure on Reek to have a good bounce back year because of the depth we have in this room with the 2 draft picks in James and Pritchett. And then as well, you've got Trey Brown and Mike Jack both sitting in there. And Trey Brown's proved that he can follow around the field a little bit too. And so I really do believe like Reek's going to have his preseason is going to be very intriguing. How are they deploying him? How is this looking? What do the first couple games of the regular season look like with him out there? Because I truly think if Reek doesn't have a good year and he struggles again, there's no loyalty there. Mike McDonald did not draft Reek Wolin. Pete Carroll did. He fits Pete's old style of corner, big, long, lanky, and fast. I think there is more to be seen that if Tariq doesn't have a good year, that you could see him moved. I, on the other hand, think that Tariq will have a bounce back year. I think he's more focused this year after that slump. So that's kind of why I have Reek as number 12 on our most intriguing list.
Yeah, he's definitely intriguing to me too. I mean, we've brought him up a lot in this offseason, and I think the thing you mentioned is he has to have a big year because he's a 5th round pick. There's not really any, you talk about loyalty or there's just not a lot of investment there either. He's a late round pick. It's not, the only thing you look at is like, he's got a lot of tools. He's got a high ceiling. He's got crazy 4.2 speed and long and all this kind of stuff. So, but I agree with you. I expect the same thing, especially with this new coaching staff and a plan with him. And if he's focused and saying, okay, you know what, that was a sophomore slump, whatever you want to call it, I'm ready to go here in year 3 and to be that other corner opposite Spoon and really, know what it's like and really start playing some serious defense here. And but I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do out there too, man. Let's keep it rolling. Next on the list, this guy hasn't even played it down yet, but was our first round pick at 16. You and me and everybody fired up about this guy, Byron Murphy. You watch the guy in college. He's just a beast. What's intriguing to you most though about this kid coming here?
So the thing that intrigues me most about Byron Murphy is his versatility, man. Like, you watch him at Texas last year, and I strongly suggest like our listeners go and watch some of Byron Murphy's Texas tape from last year. As much as there were other guys on that D-line, I believe Sweat was another one of them that was quite, good on that D-line. Murphy beat so many double teams in college last year and affected the inner workings of that offensive line so drastically that teams would either abandon the run or quarterbacks couldn't properly function in the pocket. And so, like, I'm just looking at the stats from last year as we're talking about it. The guy had 13 solo tackles, 16. So he had 16 assisted. He had 29 total tackles last year as a D tackle. He had, 5 sacks, which is good for your interior rush. Like, that's kind of a high number you want to see from those guys. But he also had 7 QB hurries. So if you add that with his sacks, he's affecting that pocket 12 times in the whole season. It may not seem like a lot, but that is a lot. If you're getting that many pressures in the pocket, in the quarterback's face. And the key thing here with why he's intriguing to me in Seattle is he doesn't have to come in and be the guy. Like, he's not that yet. He can come in and be rotational, kind of like when we had Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill. They rotated during that Super Bowl era. You got Leonard Williams here. You got Jaron Reed. You got Draymond Jones. You've got, Jonathan Hankins. You've got a lot of guys in the middle of that and in that defensive line. And I think that's going to allow Murphy to come in and potentially have more of a role in his first year than just be on the field from first down to third down. He might come in and be, depending on who they're playing, and Mike McDonald might, notice something in film and be like, hey, you know what, Byron? You're only going to be coming in on third down pass situations because that guard cannot handle this move. And this is something you're going to focus on this week. And I think that's things you'll see is they're going to use him more as a matchup disruptor. Then they're going to say, hey, your expectation is to play every single down and just get after it. That, I think, is something you'll see more in year 2 for Byron Murphy. Year 1, I think the reason he's going to be intriguing is how are they going to deploy his versatility with the other weapons they have in that D-line room.
Yeah, and that is intriguing, and it's also a luxury, right? We just couple guys down the list a few minutes ago. We talked about depth, and it's like, when you have that, you just have the luxury of not having to rush this guy in and being like, oh man, you're our first round pick. You got to get in there and play every down and make a difference because we finished, 2 years in a row almost dead last in the league in the run, and you got to be this difference maker. But you just mentioned guys on this line. We just talked about Dre Jones. We talked about, go down the list. It's exciting this year. Talking about that this D line could start to become an identity. And then just as Murphy progresses, then like you said, where is he effective right now with Mike and watching film and then unleash him year 2 or whatever, but it's just, you have that luxury. It's kind of like, when you look at the guy that we were going back and forth about last year, Jalen Carter, that went to Philly. When they took Jalen Carter, you're like, man, like Philly's already got a beast of a D line. Now they're adding Jalen Carter, but he could just be in that mix. He can be in that mix and do his thing and be effective, but he doesn't have to. It's not all the weights on his shoulders. So that's, I agree. That is super intriguing about Murphy.
Well, and the thing is that you're not going to pressure this rookie to come in and save the D-line. Like you
Right.
think about, if we go back to when we made that Russell Wilson trade and you look at the D-line we had with, Benson Mayoa and a lot of those guys we had on that D-line that year in 2020, 2021, we were going, holy crap, is this cupboard bare? Like we don't have anybody. We don't have anybody coming up really. No. We were banking on Darrell Taylor to be our new pass rushing ace, if remember? Yeah. And it's like, now you look at it and you go, holy shit, like we've got Derek Hall that we still need to develop. And Taylor's basically the guy that we're talking about. Does he even make this roster? So like you look at how much that trade and the way John Schneider has reshaped this room through the trade of Leonard Williams, and, getting Shelby Harris and the draft capital to go out and get Byron Murphy and all these different things that they've done. They've completely restocked this cabinet where it's like, okay, cool. So even if we lose a guy this year, say Jaron Reed gets injured or something like that happens this year, we're not going, oh crap, we don't have anything on the defense. Like who are we pulling in? Like it's like, okay, plug and play, next man up, here we go. And that's where it gets really intriguing, especially when we get into watching camp and we start our camp series with these guys. Is some of these guys we don't even know that aren't even on our list that are undrafted guys that might pop and show up that are going to be big time players for the Hawks throughout the year. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it absolutely is, man. I'm looking forward to him big time. Keep it rolling, man. We're into the top 10. We're into the top 10 here. A guy that is in our backfield, and he's an exciting player, man. Ken Walker. It was kind of a, I'm going to get your take, but for me, intriguing because last year I felt like this team just didn't really have an identity in offense. So, I feel like coming into this year with Grubb, there's just going to be more of a plan, and whether, what, I don't know how he's going to balance out the run game versus the pass game and all this kind of stuff. But I just felt like last year, both guys, couldn't really get going as much because I just felt like game to game, there just wasn't this identity. They never really got an identity of what they wanted to establish. But for you, man, what's intriguing about Ken?
So what's intriguing to me about Ken is I look at Ken Walker's skill set and I look at Ryan Grubb and what he's had in the past with the Huskies and some of the other running backs he's had. And Ken Walker to me is a I'm going to use this term, roided up version of Dylan Johnson, who he had last year with the University of Washington.
Yeah.
And what Grubb was able to do with Dylan Johnson was phenomenal. Dylan Johnson was such a focal point in that offense. I think his injury, in a lot of ways cost the Huskies their national championship. And so now I flash forward to what Ryan Grubb's got in Seattle with Kenneth Walker. You got a guy that's a threat out of the backfield as a receiver, as well as a guy that's a threat to be a home run hitter in your backfield in the running game. And the way I think that they're going to run Seattle's offense, we've been a very high zone rated team for a lot of years, especially with what Shane Walders wanted to do the last couple of years. We've been wide zone run because that's what McVay's system was when he was there, an outside zone. And so I look at it and I kind of wonder now if we're not going to become more of a gap run scheme in a way where we're pulling guards and we're doing stuff. And I still think we'll have zone in there as well. Yeah. But I think there's going to be more emphasis on using misdirection in our run game to assist Ken Walker and the running backs and Charbonnet and whoever else ends up in that backfield. But just looking at Ken Walker, last year, he played in 15 games. Yeah. Started all 15 that he was available for. He had 219 attempts for 905 yards. So he missed a couple of games last year. He averaged 4 yards a carry. He had 8 touchdowns. So that's still, he averaged about 60 yards a game. As a rookie, he only played in 11 of the 15 that he was available for. He touched the ball a few more times. He touched it 228, was over 1,000-yard runner. He almost averaged 5 yards a carry, so almost a full yard more in his rookie year. And he averaged 70 yards a game. And people look at that and may go, oh, this 10 yards isn't huge. It's a first down. But that's huge when we look at how poor the Seahawks' time of possession was last year.
Right.
It was horrible. And your third down conversion was horrible. And I think a big thing of that was they could not establish enough of a run game to get those initial yards at the start of the drive. So instead of being, second and third down +7, his rookie year, there were opportunities for Geno and that offense to be in second and +5. So second and 4, second and 3, third and 3, high percentage converting downs. When you're not running the ball as successfully, that's kind of the thing. And just to allude to his receiving game as well, he caught about the same amount of passes in the last 2 years, 29 last year, 27 the year before. Last year, he had 260 yards, averaged 8 yards a catch. He had 1 touchdown, but he was targeted 37 times. I think you're going to see that number go up a little bit. I think you're going to see moments where all of a sudden Ken Walker split out into the slot and different things like that just because of how creative Ryan Grubb is. So I'm really excited to see how Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff with the new blocking scheme, the way they attack defenses, and because they're going to be more of a push the ball down the field, vertical attack passing team, how does that open up lanes for Ken Walker this year? I think Ken Walker gets over 1,000 yards, and I truly think he is going to be a Pro Bowl level player this year because I think he's going to go back to being as explosive as he was as a rookie.
Yeah, no, that's some great points on Ken. And then just like you said, if he can stay healthy, biggest thing. But I mean, that goes for a lot of running backs in this league nowadays, man. But yeah, it's just for me. I agree, man. I think it was just for me. It was just not establishing that run game last year, but still, you look at the numbers, and it's like, okay, now with Grubb, what he did down in Washington, it just gets you excited to see what Ken can really do, especially coming into now year 3, having more experience and just feeling like, hey, I'm the guy now, and Charbonnet is my backup, whatever you want to say. But it's going to be exciting. So I mean, these 4 guys on the list, man, every one of these guys, I mean, I know it's a 25 list, but these 4 tonight, I mean, they're all really intriguing in their own way, right? Because there's a couple of guys on this list. It's like, hey, you need bounce back years, like you really do. And I think you and I talked about it. If Pete was still here in the same staff, if we did this list, they might not be on the list, maybe, because you kind of think, it might be the same old thing, maybe not. I think with Mike and this new staff, it kind of gets you excited because you feel like that Mike, just with the history of his defense, can put these guys in the best position possible to succeed. So I think that's what excites me about, especially Wolin and Jones on the list tonight, man. So guys, that's it, man. That's it. That's another 4 for you guys. we got 9 left, and continue this series, continue following this series all the way to camp. And camp's coming up quick. Like, it is coming up quick. We are a few weeks away. So it's getting exciting. We're going to line this up, give you the final 4 right before camp here. So we're getting fired up. And in between, man, we got a couple things coming up too. So just make sure you kind of just keep up with the channel. We are going to take a little bit of a hiatus coming up, but we got stuff in between for you guys too. So just make sure you keep it locked on and hit the notification button, subscribe, all that good stuff. And but that's it for us. And we'll get you guys on the next one. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.